This is Right to Life Radio, a production of Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Girardi.
On a rare afternoon edition of Right to Life Radio, airing right after Fresno State football this week. Our thanks to everyone at iHeart for keeping us on the air, even when Fresno State sports happen. So our big thanks to everyone at iHeart. This is Right to Life Radio, and as we do every first Saturday of the month, we want to share about our work at Right to Life, and we are doing our Stories from the Sidewalk segment. Joining me to talk about it is Right to Life of Central California's own Linda Talia. Thank you, Linda, for joining us again on the show this week.
Hello.
And you've got a couple of, it seems like it's been a very up and down time with our sidewalk ministry, as it often is. I feel like hearing... it seems like you can go through very dry spells, very active spells, good spells, bad spells.
Yeah.
And so we had some very bad things and some very good things happening recently. So why don't you share a little bit about the stuff that's going on? And I'm interested in it because I think it's tying in. I mean, interested in it, of course, because of the importance of what's going on, but also I think because of, I think this is, it ties in really, we are seeing on the sidewalk things that are very real as far as national abortion trends. So anyway, well, explain sort of what you saw.
Well, I mean, just to lead in, I feel like I'm pretty solid out there on the sidewalk. I have a pretty good grasp of what's going on, and there's all kinds of different stuff going on, from vagrants walking by to, people flipping us off and yelling at us, to people just wanting to start an argument, to people who are genuinely in a crisis. Mm-hmm. So if something shakes me, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And this definitely shook me. I mean, shook me to the point where I think I cried on and off for 30 minutes after it all happened. It was just so shocking to me that it, not that I don't know what happens, but that it happened on my watch, I guess you could say.
Right. So describe what happened. So
I met this young lady out in front of Planned Parenthood, offered her a flower, and asked her pretty much straight out if she was considering an abortion. Or I think I said, "Are you getting a pregnancy test?" Because she was visibly pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, she was thin, and to the point where I might have said, "How far along are you?" If that was acceptable to ask.
Yeah. You're always skating on thin ice when you assume someone's pregnant. But
this is one of those ones where it was pretty clear.
Pretty clear, yeah.
So she said that she was planning to get an abortion, and I said, "Is this something you really want to do?" And she said, "No."
Right.
So I said, "Would you like to come and talk?" And she said, yes. She was a little hesitant, but she wanted to come and talk. Mm-hmm. Her partner was waiting for her in the car. Mm-hmm. So we walked over and we started talking, and she unrolled her story. And she has 3 kids already. Mm-hmm. She's only 27.
Which is a thing, by the way, that I think a lot of people on the outside looking in to the abortion issue, I think they think most abortions are, unmarried 19-year-old first pregnancy or something. And very often, that is far more often than I think most people realize, it's often women who already have maybe 1 or 2 kids and just feel they're beyond capacity.
More than you would want to just like you're saying, more than you would want to think.
Yeah.
So these are women who know what it's like to go through a pregnancy, know what it's like to birth a child, know what it's like to nurture and bond with a baby, and usually at least a small child, toddler.
Yeah.
So this person would fit exactly in that category. Yeah. And she was crying, and she looked just visibly shaken. And I also learned something else. I thought I had heard that you couldn't have a surgical abortion if you'd had something to eat, which is not true.
Yeah, well,
because I tried it that day.
Yeah. So she was gonna have a surgical abortion, or
I don't think she knew what she was having, but now that I know how far along she was, she had to.
How far along was she?
Well, she said she was 15 weeks, but I think she was farther along, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got her sitting down, and we got kind of quiet, and I talked to her a little bit about what I knew and what I had to offer. And I did my usual thing. Have you talked to any family members? Do you have a mom in your life? And she said, yeah. And I said, have you talked to your sister? Yes. What'd your sister say? She said, well, my sister said I was going to have a hard time with this, but she would, support me. And I said, I think what she was saying was that she would still love you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like she was supporting an abortion, because she was telling you this was going to be a lot hard. I didn't mean a lot hard, but it's going to be a lot.
It's going to be hard. Yeah.
But a lot hard.
We get you.
I don't know why I always do that.
English grammar's hard. All right.
Anyway, and so then I asked her, have you talked to your mom? And she said, no. And I said, why not? What will she say? And she said, well, she'll tell me to keep the baby. And it floors me that this is so common. Yet this is the time that the daughter chooses not to
confide in mom.
Not to confide, and maybe to think that they're making an adult decision. I don't get it. But anyway, so while we were having our conversation, this is the second part, because this is a big contrast of what was going on out there. I had a couple come in who several months ago were planning to have an abortion. And they came in and chose life.
Right.
They chose life, and
one of the wonderful success stories. Of
and she's
of
a
our
big.
work.
They're big success stories. So they chose life, and they came in and they wanted to volunteer.
Yeah.
So here they come walking in, and I'm like, hey, come on in here, because they're young, and here's this person, and you can see, this is it works.
Talk. Yeah.
So they come in and they just start talking like it's just a little, like we're just talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And like, you're going to be fine, and you're going to love this baby. And I actually even gave her a mommy gift, the bag of baby stuff.
Yeah.
So, the other mom that came in, she was just saying, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be okay. You can do this.
Yeah.
And the guy's chiming in, who, by the way, was like, nah, we're not going to have a baby. He's now chiming in. And he said, you know what I want to tell you is that whatever she tells you is the truth.
Yeah. So this is the male partner of the woman we had helped who decided to keep her baby.
Yes.
And so she's coming in and talking with this more indecisive mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy's reinforcing it. Yeah.
And he was like way on the other side.
Right.
And he was like, I can't even tell you all the things that she said she'd do, and she's done, like more than what I thought.
Right.
More than what she said.
Yeah.
And Tiana, that was her name, and she doesn't mind people knowing her name.
Our volunteer who's helping us.
Yeah. She said, here's the thing. Linda's my support system right now. That's all I got. And it works, and it's enough. And I have all these resources, and I'm okay. I'm happy. And so I'm here, and I'm kind of listening to this, but I'm focused on this other person, and it seems like she's making progress, and she's going to choose life. She's had this, looks like this community.
Yeah.
And we get up to walk out, and she says, will you take my phone number so we can keep in touch?
Yeah, which is great.
Pretty unusual.
Yeah.
I said, well, of course. So I took her phone number, and I said, I'll give you my phone number if you'll talk to your mom. And she said, I'll talk to my mom. And she's walking out the door, and I thought, well, that's that.
Yeah, great.
And then her partner meets her in our parking lot and basically tells her to get in there and have an abortion.
And so they go in. Yeah.
They didn't go in. He just told her to go in.
And she just went in.
She just went in. I could not believe it. I was just shocked, because that's never happened before, where someone's come in the building,
talked with us,
wants me to take her phone number. There's no I didn't get any signs. So that's something that I want people who are listening to understand. It only took one person who she obviously feared.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't love. It was the fear of, what am I going to do if I go against what he says?
Yeah.
It took that one person for her to choose.
So did you see that interaction? Like, was he like, get in there? Or it's hard. It's hard to. Yeah.
I saw the interaction from kind of a ways, and I kind of heard something, and then I just sort of put it together. And then actually, our security guard had already talked to him and found out, and he was just like, because I was like, hey, about to call after him, and my security guard was saying like, no, don't say anything. And I said, what's going on? He goes, he has 8 kids already.
He has 8 kids.
He has 8 kids of his own already, and he goes, he's a bad dude.
3.
Just
Oof.
let it go. Because I'm thinking, well, normally if I get a hold of the guy, I can say, like, she wants to have this baby.
Yeah.
And I did.
And clearly this
just
guy.
let it go. And anyway, so she had given me this phone number too. So were you able to follow up? Is there any follow? Yeah. But I said,
there's
call
only
your
so
mom.
much you can do.
But I'd seen her go to the car. I saw her go to the car, and I thought, well, she's going to get in the car. She went to the car, and she put everything in the car, and then she walked into the clinic. Mm-hmm. And so I knew she didn't have her phone. I mean, I knew it, but I still wasn't thinking. And I texted, and I said, call your mom. Mm-hmm. And I got a text almost immediately, wrong number. And I was like, man. No, it's not a wrong number.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I texted again, and I said, somebody just gave me this phone number. By the way, are you sitting in the car? Because I'm right in front of you. Something like wrong number.
Yeah.
Again. And then I tried later that day. I just said, God loves you. And they said, wrong number. Yeah. So it was horrible.
Yeah.
And the other horrible part, I just want to keep going. I know I'm taking over. Sure. Is that I had this couple come out who was excited because they know they're having a daughter. Mm-hmm. They one of the things that was
our volunteer couple who had been in that woman's shoes before and are on the positive side of it. Yeah,
they were all excited. They knew they were having a daughter. They Tiana had she'd gotten a job. That was one of the things that was a holdup. Like, what am I going to have a job? I don't have a job. And I said, give it a minute. She got a job.
It was like a day or two later, right? Yeah.
Yeah. This is the one I talked about before. She walked in the door, looked at her email, and she got a job offer.
Yeah.
So she had a job. They were way more stable. They were, going to move to a different apartment. So they were all good. And then, here's the situation. And they walked in, and I was in tears, and they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's just back up. And I felt bad because why should they see that?
Yeah.
And it was just, and it kind of overshadowed that they were out there.
Yeah.
Full circle.
And that's the thing. That's the for which I've always kind of commended your work in that this is not easy and that this is not all we can do is offer. And it's kind of as much as I guess let's I think let's head into a break, and when we return, I want to talk about the idea of the role of men in the abortion decision and how what is being supportive,
what is it?
And what does that mean, and how this example is showing sort of how that's often manifesting itself. We will be back with more on this on Right to Life Radio. We're back with stories from the sidewalk here on Right to Life Radio, and our own Linda Talia here with us. We've been talking about a situation Linda encountered where she had been interacting with a young woman, thinking about having an abortion, talked with her, young lady was agreeing she was going to keep the baby, and then as soon as she leaves the building, one conversation with a somewhat not super nice looking boyfriend, and she goes into the clinic for an abortion. And I think this leads kind of naturally into it. A topic we're going to discuss later on in the show about the number of abortions that are either coerced or unwanted by the person who has them. Basically, the latest so this is a piece that was in, I believe it was in The Hill, written by David C. Reardon, who's a researcher for the Charlotte Lozier Institute. And I'll get to you in a sec here, Linda. So the statistic he's citing, the latest peer-reviewed research on this issue shows that almost 70% of women with a history of abortion describe it as coerced, unwanted, or contrary to their own preferences and values. And so 70% of women are not going in there because they want to. They're going in there because of either outright coercion or some form of pressure. Or it's not what they want. It's not something they want to have happen. So that's and I think that leads to what is the role of men. I think and I'll let you take the floor. I mean,
well,
it's just not. there are all these men who are saying they're supportive, but I don't think they don't really understand what support means. Yeah.
So one of the things before talking about the men, I wanted to say something about the study. I mean, that study was mainly about the abortion pill.
No, this is about abortions in total.
In general?
In general,
okay.
yeah.
Because I've always said, and not that I'm out there marking tallies, but 80 to 90% of girls and women going into the clinic don't really want to go in there to have an abortion. They're just desperate and don't know what to do.
Sure.
And ironically, whenever I have someone kind of a naysayer saying, you know, what do you think you're doing and blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, you know, I'm doing this because I really think that 80 to 90% of the people going in don't want to do this. And that usually will bring them over a little bit because it kind of touches their heart a little because they know that's the truth.
Yeah.
That
well,
is,
nobody's skipping into an abortion clinic.
Yeah.
Like they're doing so because there has been some breakdown.
Yes.
That they did not want to have happen either in their relationship, in their whatever it is. This is not someone going in, you know, this is not Rosie the Riveter, you know, flexing her arm and saying, yes, we can. Like this is not a positive, happy choice.
No, this is not what the general public who doesn't want to get involved knows.
Yeah.
Or thinks.
Yeah.
But when I talk about that, especially to women, all of a sudden I can see them turn a little, and then their immediate response, because they don't want to be quote unquote wrong, which is not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to point out, this is, I'm doing this. I'm not going to get a gold star or first place into heaven. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, well, but what are you going to do with all those kids? Well, that's not even the same ball game. Yeah, really.
Well, I mean, that's almost a completely different level of discussion.
Yeah.
Of you know.
Well, because actually, somebody who said that recently, they worked for the social system. What do you call that? She was a social worker. Social worker. Yeah. And she was like, "Can you believe? I mean, do you ever see these foster kids and all the pain that I see and you know, why would you want that?" And I said to her two things. One was, do you ever see any of these kids be successful? And she said, well, of course. And then I said, do you believe in hope?
Yeah.
And she said, well, of course I do. And I said, so you want to cut out the hope?
Yeah.
Because
of course.
We don't know. And so
she's got to make up her mind. Is it better for these kids to be dead or to be foster kids?
Exactly.
If you think it's better for these children to be dead, then stop working in the foster care system. Stop being a social worker.
Well,
I mean, and if you say it's better for foster kids to be dead, have the courage to say that out loud. Yeah. And I don't think people don't follow. I think people don't, when people raise that argument about, the foster care system and kids in the foster care system have so much suffering, they're not following the logical conclusion of what they're saying.
Right.
If the potential of someone's quality of life is the basis for deciding whether they should live or die, then we should get a machine gun and go round up all the foster care kids and kill them. Because we're saying your life is not worth living.
So what about kids who have had cancer?
Yeah.
Like that were truly wanted. So, made a mistake. I don't know. And I even did ask her, I said, so are you saying when you see like maybe a toddler in pain that would you put them to death? Well, no, that's different. I'm like, okay, then here's the next question.
Yeah.
When do you believe a baby is a baby?
Right.
And she just sort of threw up her hands. And I said, and it was a fine conversation. We weren't like arguing. It was good. But anyway, so to dial back to what you were talking about, the men, when I was listening to you read, what I thought of was that there are many levels of coercion.
Sure.
And the coercion that I don't think that really recognize is not the obvious. We think of, I think, coercion as like
a pimp has a gun.
Yeah.
If you don't get this abortion, I will kill you.
Or even just plain pressure. You should do this.
Yeah. There's
another level of coercion that happens in relationships.
Yeah.
And that level is where the person wants peace. Mm-hmm. It could be just peace at the moment. It could be peace, for a period of time, but they just want to smooth it over so that they can have peace. And a lot of times they're doing it in the name of other children.
Sure.
And so I think that's something that really needs to be addressed overall in all of our relationships. And we need to recognize this, that that coercion isn't readily identifiable.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think,
and that is 100% true. The desire for, and especially so often very often this is not married relationships. The permanence, the stability, the commitment is not always there.
right.
I mean, there's been research, I don't have it at my fingertips right now, about the number of abortions that happen because one of the partners makes either an open or an implicit threat that I'm going to end this relationship if you have this baby or whatever. I think that threat is very real and very possible.
I think that you were talking about these people aren't in marriages, but I think it happens just as much in marriages.
Well, yeah, and not to say that marriage is the
Magic.
perfect magical
Yeah.
thing, but
No, but what I'm saying is we do that. We will smooth things over because we think that then they're going to have peace and they're taking care of their children. Or a lot of times there are so many people in these abusive relationships and they might be physically abusive. And I think that's what our security guard was kind of saying.
Warning you.
Be careful.
Yeah.
This could only get worse for her.
Sure.
I guess. Although.
Yeah.
I don't think it could get worse.
And that's the thing. In the desire for some kind of peace, they're doing something that could be very long-term, extremely non-peaceful for them, for the rest of their lives. So it's a difficult thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining us. Again, you can learn more about what we do at Right to Life, what Linda's work. Go to righttolifeca.org. You can see some of Linda's blogs talking about stories from the sidewalk and continue to support our work. You can go to righttolifeca.org. If you think our work of helping save babies is important, throw us an extra $1 or so. Thank you, Linda. All right, we will be back with some stories about how the abortion pill is facilitating coerced abortions. That's next on Right to Life Radio. Back with Right to Life Radio. Our thanks to Linda Talia for being on with us for Stories from the Sidewalk. We touched on this during Linda's segment, but there's a fascinating op-ed piece that I read earlier this week. It was published in The Hill, and it was written by a gentleman named David Reardon. David is a researcher for the Charlotte Lozier Institute and the Elliott Institute. And the title of this piece is Coercive Abortions Are at the Heart of the FDA Abortion Pill Case. And I had never really, we have always heard sort of anecdotal stories, like especially from Linda or from other people that, we know that from our experience interacting with women outside Planned Parenthood, that the vast majority of women we work with don't want to have an abortion. They are having an abortion because it's they perceive it as their only choice. And it's not people making this decision in the full throes of happiness and freedom. It's something, a kind of worst case scenario, if you will. But what I didn't understand is just, now I thought there was some kind of selection bias in our experience of these women. I mean, the women, it's obviously the women who wind up talking to Linda about it are the ones that we do talk about. And so naturally, they're going to be a little bit more, inclined against abortion if they're agreeing to talk about it with Linda. Then that sort of means that they're sort of admitting that they don't want it. So maybe we have some selection bias in our anecdotal analysis of this. But what I'm seeing is there is actually data showing the vast numbers of women who are having abortions and don't want to. And the way in which the abortion industry sort of glosses over this and is framing this whole thing as a question of women's autonomy, women's choice, that the pro-choice side, they are the true defenders of female autonomy, female choice. What we're really seeing, though, is that a large percentage of women who are choosing abortion don't want to choose it. They are choosing it because of some form of either coercion or pressure, or it's not something they want to do. It's something they feel they have to do. This is not a choice, frankly, for autonomy. It's a choice of necessity and in some cases even flat out coercion. And the abortion pill relates to that. So let me get into Reardon's piece. In part, Reardon is sort of responding to the story that we've talked about a lot on the show lately, which is the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Fifth Circuit has issued a ruling saying, pending the Supreme Court's review of this, We are blocking the 2016 Obama-era FDA deregulations and the 2021-2022 Biden-era deregulations on the abortion pill. That basically the abortion pill had originally been improved in the year 2000 with certain health and safety restrictions on it, limiting it to the first 7 weeks of pregnancy, requiring a certain number of in-person doctor visits. And in 2016, Barack Obama vastly loosened those restrictions, expanded the time frame when the abortion pill could be taken from 7 weeks to 10 weeks. So again, this is not the morning after pill. This is the abortion pill. This is a drug to basically artificially bring about a miscarriage up to 10 weeks now into pregnancy. So in 2016, Barack Obama loosened the regulations from only the first 7 weeks of pregnancy to the first 10 weeks of pregnancy, lessened the number of in-person doctor visits. And in 2021, 2022, President Biden's FDA further loosened regulations, eliminated any need for an in-person visit, allowed the abortion pill to be shipped through the mail so that you could get it just in the mail or at a major pharmacy rather than just at a clinic, which had been the old rules. Now, the issue Reardon raises that I haven't heard anyone else raise is the idea of the safety of the abortion pills and how the safety of the abortion pills, the use of the abortion pills, and how they relate to coercion. So let's dig into that. He starts by talking about how mail-order abortion pills are not safe, but he writes, to that, I would add this: mail-order abortion fuels and expands the epidemic of unwanted abortions. As this case is likely headed to the Supreme Court, I hope all the judges and the public consider what the data say about coerced and unsafe abortion. My latest peer-reviewed research on this crisis shows that almost 70% of women with a history of abortion describe it as coerced, unwanted, or contrary to their own preferences and values. In many cases, the pressure to abort escalates into emotional or physical abuse. The FDA's recent approval of mail-order abortions only increases this danger. Now, anyone can obtain and stockpile abortion pills for use against women who refuse to abort voluntarily. This is no frivolous or merely theoretical concern, as there are already known cases of abortion pills being slipped into pregnant women's drinks. So he's raising this real, and this is something we've been sort of raising the alarm bell on with the abortion pill. This whole universe of possibilities opens up if abortion is able to be basically portable and transported in pill form. We know about the presence of illegal websites from which, without a prescription, people, even before the Biden administration changed the rules allowing the abortion pill to be shipped through the mail, people were able to order the abortion pill from illegal Chinese and Indian websites and get them shipped to their house. There was a New York Times, I believe a New York Times reporter who did precisely that, a male New York Times reporter, investigated the story, ordered abortion pills, had him shipped to his house, just to show kind of how easy this is. With the overturning of Dobbs and a number of American states now passing laws to limit and restrict abortion, there are also all these possibilities for illegal abortions to take place through the transportation of abortion pills across state lines. Someone can get abortion pills, stockpile abortion pills, take them from Illinois into Indiana, for example. So you have a lot of these cases now where you've got a very pro-choice state bordering a very pro-life state, Washington and Idaho, Indiana and Illinois, etc. Now, these kind of safety restrictions are, David Reardon's raising the point in this article that these safety concerns need to be acknowledged by the FDA and need to be acknowledged by the courts as a legitimate safety concern that is maybe not really being fully assessed. When people are looking at the safety of the abortion pill, they're just thinking about, well, what are the side effects? How dangerous is it? Do women have bad reactions? This is another dangerous thing. And he talks about there are known cases of abortion pills being slipped into pregnant women's drinks. He continues, surely it is not the FDA's intent to directly aid abusers and sex traffickers, but it is also clear that they are willing to accept this collateral damage in exchange for making access to abortion slightly easier. As the FDA's lawyer admitted during oral arguments, quote, no doctor has to be involved. That's what the FDA wants. They want a process of doing abortion where a doctor doesn't have to be involved. Have a nurse practitioner prescribe it via telemedicine app. You don't have to have an in-person doctor appointment. And that points to what is really driving the FDA's agenda, a march toward ever faster, cheaper, and unlimited access, ding, 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 access to more abortions. David is singing out of the same songbook that we have here on Right to Life Radio, that access is the chief driving concern for the abortion industry. Does this person have the ability to get an abortion? And anything that's a barrier to someone getting abortion, if you can't afford it, have the state pay for it. If you can't get to an abortion clinic, have the abortion mailed to you. And in the Dobbs era, the post-Roe era of states limiting abortion, I think this is precisely the outcome that the pro-choice side wants. I mean, they've been referring to this as, their version of the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad, the famous system by which slaves from the South were being transported to the North to freedom. That's how they're characterized. That's how there are some extreme pro-choice zealots who are characterizing the bringing of abortion pills into pro-life states as almost like an Underground Railroad. That's how they think of this. Now, I find this whole thing to be, not, and I want to build on the points we were making in the first few segments. So often we pro-lifers get put into this corner of being the ones who lack compassion. And it's ironic that we're the ones who are saying don't kill human beings, and we're the ones that are put in the corner as we lack compassion. And you've all heard these arguments, look at this poor woman. She already has 2 kids. She's in poverty. She can't. You're going to make this woman who's facing all these challenges have another baby. This person who is in this horrible situation. You're going to make this person have a baby. Don't you have any compassion for her situation? How can you do this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've all heard these. And in my work, I often, especially, talking with kids, talking with teenagers who hear about all sort of the hard cases, abortion cases of rape. What I try to do is kind of turn it on its head. And I sort of say what we all want to be compassionate. And I think in disagreeing with pro-choicers, the problem is we're landing at a different place when we look at these situations on what is the compassionate response here. Is the compassionate response to a difficult pregnancy situation abortion? Well, I think to give people the context that fully 70%, almost 70% of all abortions are not actually wanted. That is such a huge number. That is such a huge percentage. That is just demonstrating what we're talking about here. That are we really being compassionate by patting this woman on the back? I think of there's a meme, a kind of internet jokey image that goes around when someone is pretending like when someone is acting as if they're offering you a really great service, but it's actually not very helpful at all. There's this meme image that's put forward that people will reply to someone talking in this way. It's an image of the hand of someone drowning, and you see another hand coming out from outside the frame towards the hand, and instead of this hand coming to grab the hand of the person drowning and help pull them up, instead the hand coming from outside the frame gives it a high five, and then the next frame shows the person just drowning. So what is the hand you give to someone who is drowning? A high five is not what they need. What they need is someone to pull them out. I feel that's what abortion is. You have all these women, let's take the example of Fresno. Almost 25% of women in South Fresno get no prenatal care before they deliver. There are tons of women on Medi-Cal, very few doctors who want to see them. These women have, if they do find a place that's going to take them, they have huge time lags before they can even get in to see a doctor. Okay, with lower socioeconomic, with a lower socioeconomic status comes higher and higher likelihoods of having complex pregnancies, high-risk pregnancies. So you have this huge public health crisis in Fresno. All these women who are facing these almost systemic problems of poverty, the complete breakdown of a marriage culture in this country, and so many women who are facing difficult, chaotic home lives or who don't have supportive spouses. All of these massive systemic problems, and you think it's compassionate just to give this person an abortion? When we return, we'll talk about the abortion pill and the influence of some population control fanatics, people tied to the eugenics movement of the early 20th century. That's next on Right to Life Radio. Back with Right to Life Radio, we're talking about this great piece by David Reardon in The Hill, and hopefully we can get David Reardon on the show at some point to talk about this. He's talking about the abortion pill and how it ties in with the idea of coerced abortions. And he goes along with, he winds up doing this fascinating history about the development of the abortion pill and how it came to get FDA approval, and how basically President Clinton was working with some of the Population Council. So the Population Council was this organization founded by the eugenicists, people who supported the idea of eugenics until after World War II. That kind of became a bad word because people saw where eugenics led, thanks to Adolf Hitler, which was founded by eugenicists John D. Rockefeller III and Frederick Osborne. Frederick Osborne was a founding member of the American Eugenics Society. During World War II, the word eugenics fell into disfavor. The purpose of the Population Council was to advance and rebrand eugenic objectives within the lexicon of population control, and to blaze the way towards the repeal of laws restricting abortion. So one of the things that basically a lot of this was being pushed by people who had, when the abortion pill was approved in 2000, it was because of the efforts of a bunch of people tied in with sort of successor organizations of the eugenics movement. And the eugenics movement is the idea, eu is the Greek word for good or well, and genics relates to genetics, so well birth, good stock, if you will. The idea that some races of people are a little better than other races of people and should have more babies, and some other races therefore should have fewer. And a lot of you'll notice that a lot of these population control advocates, the Margaret Sangers of the world, they tend to really disproportionately market their wares to certain races of people. Note, not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants from the Northeast. Very often this was being marketed towards the Irish, African Americans, people from the global South. And I think that's very much I think this is where we sort of see, I think the line gets a little blurred, where you say, well, no one's being coerced into these abortions. Obviously no one supports coerced abortions. But as Linda was sort of saying earlier in the show, there's a line here between, well, the coercion, yes, obviously is bad and worse, but if you're very aggressively pushing abortion on certain populations of people and not addressing the root causes of why they want abortion, and something they don't even want in the first place, how free is the choice? How autonomous is the choice for abortion? I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. Go to rtlcc.org to learn more about us at Right to Life, and we will talk to you next time on Right to Life Radio.